Houston, we have a problem here. This is Rebecca Koffler with Censored but Not Silenced, and we're going to talk about something very different today. Not international affairs, not intelligence briefs, no foreign policy type of stuff, but we are going to talk about domestic affairs and the problem that we are facing today in New York. What's the problem? New York City is about to have a socialist communist mayor in New York City, which will have catastrophic consequences both for my adopted hometown, New York City, where I live now, and eventually for the entire country. So the outline for today's talk is, and obviously you've already hopefully figured out that I am speaking about the self-proclaimed socialist, or more accurately, communist. There's not really much difference between those two. Zohran Mamdani, who is leading massively in the polls right now, and will highly likely win this election unless we do something about it. So the outline for today's briefing is first, I am going to explain why socialism doesn't work and will never work. I will describe to you exactly how things work under socialism, and I'll give you my call to action for New Yorkers. Before I do that, I will address exactly why you should listen to me, to what I have to say, what makes me qualified to speak about this topic, socialism. First and foremost, we've got 13 days before the election on November 4th. And that's why there's a certain urgency to it. Why am I qualified to speak about this? Well, because I actually was born and raised in a communist, or rather socialist country, the country that no longer exists, the USSR, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, or the Soviet Union for short. This country no longer exists. Why? Because it was destroyed by socialism and the government's quest for communism, which is basically the next step. Why doesn't it work? Well, because it fundamentally does not factor in the human nature. What do I mean by that? Yes, it sounds all great, right? Just like Mamdani is, Comrade Mamdani, I call him, proposes, free health care, free daycare, free bus rides, government-run grocery stores, a lot of free stuff, right? But somebody has to pay for it. It has to come from somewhere, right? The money has to come from somewhere. Just like current mayor Eric Adams, who fortunately got out of the race, said, yes, free buses, that sounds good, but it actually costs $3 billion to run these buses. So, what socialist governments do in order to come up with the money to pay for all that free stuff that they want to give away is they confiscate wealth and income from those who create it. They confiscate wealth and income through taxes in this country, and those people who created, and they redistribute it in the form of all this free stuff. Well, what I mean that the system does not factor in the human nature. Humans are actually rational animals. We're rational animals. Humans are willing to work and do exceptional work only if there's a motivation, and the primary motivation is money. Yes, some of us, work for. All human beings are programmed to work. We want to do something, we want to create it, but we'll only do exceptional work for ideological reasons and for financial gain. Why do you think in America we have this incredible, let's say, pharmaceutical industry? Yes, there are some, there are downsides definitely to our pharmaceuticals, but on balance, America has created amazing life-saving medicines. Cancer, for example, is pretty much cured in this country, unless it's something like fast-acting, like pancreatic cancer. Why do we have amazing technological industry? For example, why do we have Amazon? Jeff Bezos created, Amazon. Why do we have Apple computers? Why do we have Microsoft? So because Bill Gates is of the world, and what's the guy who died? Steve Jobs, incredible genius. Why did they create all this stuff? Well, yes, because they were motivated on the one hand by the desire to come up with these amazing technologies, but also they were motivated by wealth. There's a reason why all of these rich people are rich, is because in this country and why they keep creating, it's because they are allowed, at least so far, at least in America, to keep the majority of the fruits of their labor. That is why. The minute the government is gonna step in and start confiscating the fruits of the labor of the people who created it, they're gonna stop producing it. They're no fools, really. If why would you get up in the morning, go to work, and put in exceptional, productivity and be creating all this stuff if you are not allowed to keep it? So the wealth creation will stop. Perhaps not today, not tomorrow, not the next month, and maybe not even next year, but gradually they will stop creating it. How do I know this? And I'm moving to my second item on the agenda, is because I actually lived it. And I've escaped the USSR to come to America. Here's how things worked under socialism, where everybody pretty much was paid the same, and everything, or most things, were free or almost free. We had almost free daycare, buses, government run, everything, not just grocery store, but hospitals, everything. And because the socialist system does not produce sufficient goods and services, and I explained why, because eventually people stop being motivated because there's no point. It's going to be taken away anyways, right? They stop putting their willpower, their intellectual firepower, their drive to create things. They stop creating it. And so, because then there's a scarcity, a great scarcity of goods and services, only those in power which was in the Soviet Union. It was, the Communist Party, which was pretty much 10% of the population. They have the first dibs on that stuff. How does it translate into the free stuff for the rest of us? What does it mean? In the healthcare area, right, we got free healthcare because that's what the Soviet government believed, that it's the right. Just like some of the socialists and the young people believe that this is a right that every human should have. And that sounds like a great idea, right? But someone has to pay for it. So what happened was my teeth were drilled without Novocaine, without the painkillers. Many, many times, not just once, but many times. And if you want to know what torture is, having your teeth drilled without Novocaine is torture. They actually strap you in, so that you don't kick the doctor or kill him. So that's how it manifests in the healthcare area. In, let's say, consumer industry in general, the Soviets we did not have a microwave, we did not have a toaster, we did not have any of the the clothing was very, very bad, and there was simply just not enough quantities available. So we basically got in line in the store before we even knew what was on sale, right? And let's say if this was we didn't have any malls, but if this were like a clothing store or a shoe store, you got in line, and before you even knew, and then you ask people, what is the line for? And let's say it was for the boots. So by the time, and it was hours and hours, right? It could be like you stand in line for 2 or 3 hours, and then you get to the front and your size is gone. So what did we do? We bought a size up, thinking that basically, especially if it's a winter boots, you could put some extra socks on. If it's like regular shoes, you can put some, paper inside. I remember to this day that when I was a teenager, my mom bought me a size bigger, shoes, and I put some paper in there and we wore. So that's how it works. When it comes to groceries, on a good day, you go to the store and you'd find, 3 things: bread, milk, and let's say sausage, or some, rotten vegetables. Yes. Why is that? Because the people who are in the store, who are running the store, and they were part of the government workers, they had the first dibs, so they would get all of these, groceries, and they would barter those groceries. What the word barter is? It's exchange. It's not the money exchange, but exchange for other, things. So they would either bring it to their family, or their extended family, or they would barter it with their acquaintances, people whom they know, for something else that the other person could give them to you, like Novocaine, right? So the doctor, the dentist, his primary responsibility obviously is to his family and his daughter when he drilled his teeth, not to me. I was nobody to him, so I could be tortured. So that's what it was. There was even a word for it called blat. It's like the system. What blat meant is that you give out all of these things, or you trade them, you barter them, whatever that is that you are in charge of, right? You barter it with people whom you know, and that's the life of an ordinary person. Of course, people who are in power, right? The government, they had access to everything because they were in charge. Everything was run by the government. They were treated at different hospitals, whether they were given, painkillers for their surgeries and for their teeth drilling. Um, they shopped at different grocery stores, even. Um, they had access to shop at different, in addition to regular stores, and even consumer goods. They had access to a store called Biroska, which literally means a birch tree, but that's where foreigners shopped, foreign tourists, and that is because the tourists were able to pay with hard currency like US dollar or British pound, and at that point the Russian ruble was not a convertible currency. So the tourists have privileges to go to these stores, and the elites, the party members. So that is what life looked like under socialism in the USSR. So the way that it will play out in New York City, if God forbid Comrade Mamdani wins, and eventually people will flee. People who produce wealth will flee. Why is that? Because Mamdani already stated that he is going to raise taxes on millionaires to pay for all this free stuff. And right now, I'm just addressing the free stuff. There are a lot of problems, obviously, with his agenda, with his platform, such as defund the police, which is another absurd and dangerous idea. But just hang with me right now as far as this socialism business. So he stated that the city's residential property taxes are inequitable because the homeowners living in neighborhoods populated by minorities, he says, pay too much in property taxes, and those living in wealthier, whiter neighborhoods don't pay enough, he said. Well, when you start discriminating basically, by race or by whatever, principle, taxing people, guess what's going to happen? The wealthy people have better mobility. They're going to move away. They're going to move to Florida or Texas, right? It is the minorities who don't have as much mobility. They can't just pick up, and go because their finances are limited, right? And so Andrew Cuomo, who is running as an independent in this race, is an independent because he lost in the primaries to Mamdani. He already said that once you start messing around with this tax, taxing in that way that Mamdani is proposing, it would dramatically shrink the tax base, and you won't be able to pay for all this free stuff. And so who will suffer? It's the rest of us, and particularly the minorities. Okay? Because people who create wealth and people who live in who live in New York City and who have more disposable income are going to move. So your restaurants are going to not have as many customers, or your entertainment industry, like I don't know, bars, clubs, comedy clubs, anything really that costs money is not going to have as many customers and eventually is going to close down. So it is the regular workers. It is the waiters and the bartenders and the security personnel and the shop, assistants that work in Macy's and Nordstrom's and Saks Fifth Avenue. They're going to be laid off. So that is the effect of these ridiculous policies. So what is call to action? Well, given that Mamdani right now is leading his nearest opponent, who's the former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, is leading him by 17% percentage points, right? And Curtis Sliwa, the Republican candidate, is running way behind. So the only way for us to save ourselves from this disastrous, inhumane system of socialism that Comrade Mamdani wants to force on New York is, and I never thought I would say that because I am philosophically more aligned with the conservative school of politics, with the Republican Party, although there are a lot of problems with the Republican Party right now. Don't get me started on that one either. But the only way for us to save the city from the potential disaster is to vote for Andrew Cuomo. He's the lesser of the evil. And I know a lot of my friends, my fellow New Yorkers, were disgusted by many of the things that Andrew Cuomo did during COVID. But believe me, whatever he did during COVID or otherwise, and all politicians are corrupt, like that, don't get me started on that one, regardless of the country, whether it's in Russia or America, everywhere, they are corrupt. It's the degrees of corruption and the scale of corruption. But believe me, whatever Cuomo did is going to pale compared to the hurt that this commie, Comrade Mamdani, will inflict on us. Trust me on that one. I know what I'm talking about. Lived it, suffered it. No thank you. No thank you to the workers and peasants' paradise for New York City. This thing is giving me flashbacks to the communist Russia that I fled. Hopefully you understand what I'm saying here. If you are on board, if you're interested in more of these types of discussions, please follow me on X, Getter, True Social, YouTube, Rumble, and Facebook. Pose questions. I will continue to talk about this issue, definitely at least till the election on November 4th. I will explain to you why, again, it is important for us to turn out. There's a formula that unfortunately does not work well in our favor, which means, which is basically only 20% of registered voters cast a ballot typically in New York, which means that only 6% of the entire population of New York City decide the fate for the rest of us. It is exactly why we need to get off of our butts, off of our couches, and get out and vote. And the early voting starts on Saturday. the 25th of October and runs through the 3rd, I think, of November, but the main day, the election day, is November 4th. Tune in today to the debate, the second and the final debate between the candidates. It's going to be Andrew Cuomo, Curtis Lewa, and of course, Comrade Zohran Mamdani. Listen carefully to what he says. Okay, Rebecca Koffler here with Censored but Not Silenced. Thank you for tuning in today, and let's do what we must do. Catch you later.